That's as far down as it goes.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a stand-up chair.
Whatever, dude. You're a stand-up.
You're a fucking stand-up guy. Yeah. You want that diaphragm right in front of your mouth.
You shut up.
You shut up.
Motherfucker. Yep.
Yep, that's parfait.
Yeah.
Cool. Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to Level 33, a weekly podcast with the 33 illustrators that contributed artwork for the book Eclipse of the Mourning Star. I am the author and your host, Robert Eujean Ogden. Eclipse of the Mourning Star is available online at all bookstores as well as on the book's website at eclipseofthemorningstar.com or abbreviated EOTMS.com. Today's guest is the artist for Chapter 30, The Needling, or The Needling. Damon Meuli, a.k.a. Demon, a.k.a. Obsidian Tattoos, a.k.a. The Architect, is another multifaceted artist who contributed artwork for Eclipse of the Mourning Star. He is perhaps most known as a master of the tattoo gun. You can find out for yourself by following him on Instagram at Demon Tattoo, spelled D-M-O-N, Tattoo. I have two pieces from Damon, and those who know the art form well always stop to ask me about them. My first close encounter with Damon was something sacred to me, enough so to be described in detail as something of a parallel plot climax in Eclipse of the Mourning Star. Damon bounces back and forth from New Zealand to the United States, where he has been hustling his buttocks off to support his daughter back in New Zealand. He is a father figure that I look up to in every aspect of life, so I am very grateful that he took time out of his ultra-busy schedule to share a shard of his knowledge on the show today. So without further ado, welcome to Level 33, my capital B brother.
Thanks, Robert. I'm quite happy to be here in the company of yourself and to share a bit of knowledge, have a little fun.
Yeah, a little fun.
Yeah.
Can't forget about that. Okay, so let's jump right in. I wanted to talk about your relationship with the arts and how you came about becoming a tattoo artist. And so, when did you start tattooing?
Ooh, I think my career started in 1997, somewhere around there. I'm 28 years into the art of tattooing.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Did you find yourself doing a lot of research, or did you just kind of come about that naturally of tattooing?
I was, at the time, playing a vagabond up and down New Zealand, enjoying life, camping by rivers, picking up odd jobs here and there. Whatever supported my lifestyle, and I decided to, they say see your country before you leave it, and so I knew I was going to leave at some point. So I decided to do just that, and then I wound up at the top of the two islands of New Zealand. If you don't know the geography, there's two main islands and a small island right down the bottom, and then a bunch of little surrounding islands. Some of them have small communities, and I arrived in Auckland, which is the greater metropolis. At that time, there was probably maybe 1.5 million people living there, largest city in New Zealand, and I was like, oh, it's a little different, and also it was a little more expensive, so I'm like, well, I'm going to need a decent job, and if I'm going to stay here. That time, I was 23 or 22, going 23, and I was like, well, maybe I'm looking at a career. I had a couple of stipulations. One was to carry on doing art, as I was always doing art. Painting was my first passion.
I was going to ask.
Definitely my first passion. So my criteria was to maintain doing art, and then it was how to do art and travel. The two main things I gave myself, and that could have been, at that time, computer graphics, which were on the move. And then the other thing that I noticed whilst arriving in the city in the summer was there was a lot of people with really nice tattoo work. I also noticed that in my neighborhood there was a studio, so I took the opportunity to venture that way and not towards computer graphics, because that would have isolated me in a room whilst traveling, and it wasn't really feasible for my personality to have that kind of isolation. I prefer the social aspect, which then also pointed me in a greater direction towards tattooing. I arrived in a studio. The owner was there, and I just asked if I could hang out for the day. He kind of looked at me, like, dude, kind of a weird question.
Yeah, this fucking guy.
Yeah, this fucking guy. But he humoured me enough to sit down and have a conversation, ask if I was into art, and sort of get to know my personality. He then asked if I had a portfolio. I did at the time, and he asked if I'd bring it in. I think it was maybe the next day. I was pretty excited by that.
What was your portfolio like then?
My portfolio was, I think, probably in 28 years of someone walking into a studio and asking for an apprenticeship, probably the best portfolio.
Okay.
By comparison.
Got it.
There was a lot of diversity in there, a lot of painting, sketch work.
What was your medium of choice?
Back then,
Yeah.
my favorite medium.
Yeah.
I think it was these crayons.
Really?
Yeah, the crayons and pastels.
That's awesome. I would not expect to hear crayons.
Yeah. With a high, there's that, and then there was the watercolor pencils back then. Anything that would give me a high saturation. So,
Okay.
the closer I could get to a comic book feel with illustration, was the better. It was probably more inspiring than anything. Yeah, so I brought my portfolio in. Guy Phil Mathias, the late Phil Mathias, he took one look at my portfolio and offered me apprenticeship on the spot.
Wow.
At that time, which I didn't realize, it was the best studio in the city. All the cool kids were hanging out. I can probably say that I didn't go to that kind of cool school.
Really?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Cool school really wasn't for me. I mean, there was cool, and there was people that were just like down and chill, but they had definitely had a different level of they had the city slack and the edge,
city kids.
Yeah. So and I was just totally more kick back and happy vibe. Also, it was probably one of the most prestigious studios in the country at the time. And so I was fortunate enough to get in with, at that time, I think seven or eight permanent artists, and then quickly there was myself, the late Sam Perkins, Otis Frizzell, I think it was Aaron Woodhams, I think his name was. We'll just say Aaron, so I don't get his last name incorrect. And we were all starting apprentices at that time. There's, out of us four, I'm the only continuing artist.
Okay. Last one standing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, tattoo artist. I don't know that anyone seen or set forth and took it on as a 100% career.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. You said you were 28 years, which is quite the adventure, quite the journey. And one of the reasons this podcast is named Level 33 is kind of seeking mastery. And we were having a conversation about this recently because I admire people who have dedicated their lives to one art form, which that's not the only art form you do, of course. We'll talk about your music in a little bit as well. But 28 years is a long time. You're approaching that 33rd year. I'm wondering if you could talk about that a little bit. Like, what was the journey like to get to 28 years? And are you looking forward to that 33rd year?
They say that the mastery hits it. There's two categories. One's 10,000 hours to 10 years. So I hit that, and I was just like, didn't really resonate with me. I think that maybe more in a professional landscape of sorts. And then the second one, I think it's a Japanese philosophy that at 30 years, not 33, that you'll hit a level of mastery. Yeah, I mean, there's probably two ways I can really look at it. One's as a goal to reach that. For me, would be a curiosity. I believe that in the final parts of any journey is where you have your greatest teachings. So for me, it's to see what those teachings are in those final 2 years, and by no means until those 2 years are over would I ever consider myself a master. I think the journey towards that goal has been it's been quite the journey over 28 years. And then if I relate that to the tattoo industry, I started in a time where, there still is a lot of flourishing egos happening in the industry. But I also worked through a time where, things were controlled by gangs. Especially when I got to Australia earlier on in my career. I was in West Australia, the wild, wild West. And this industry was still controlled by bikers. The also with there was this the mentality within the tattoo studio of the today you'd have a perhaps an owner that is more supporting of the artists. At that point, it was definitely I own the studio, you work for me.
Got it.
That kind of relationship happening now. It's more, I feel, a lot more understanding of, as opposed to tattooists. There's the shift in that has moved to artist. So, and with the artist comes the personality, and so people are more open to understanding the personalities that are now getting involved in the industry. There is also within the industry all sorts of in the newer generation, a bunch of fun artists popping up, and we're in a time where anyone can be a tattoo artist. Even the quality of work. Sometimes you can see it's outshone by a style. So a style would be prevalent, and then as someone's, as opposed to when you first start, you're looking at your technique as a tattooist.
Technique.
Nowadays you'll find that people, and then you develop your style from there.
Yeah.
Once you have all your techniques down, now people are going straight in with their style, and then the skill set is following through, which is, my mindset is, okay, cool. This is what's happening. It's an exciting place to be. It's an evolution of the tattoo industry, and the tattoo industry is one of these industries that's been around for probably centuries. I think if you trace it back, even thousands of years.
Yeah, thousands of years,
at that
for
point.
sure. I did want to ask you about style, since you brought that up. Well, a little backstory. In searching for a new piece for myself, that was something, it's always been in my mind to find a great tattoo artist. And actually, the Jade Orchid, Brina Nicole, turned me on to you. She was searching as well. We were going to get tattoos around the same time. And I had kind of given up on the sea of people that are available out there, and I wasn't seeing anything. And then she sent me her page, and I can't say I've ever been like diving through someone's Instagram so deeply just to look at the quality of tattoos. But what drew me to it was the style. And even though there are styles like polka trash and all these things that I loved to look at, there's something unique to your style, both the, what would you call the hieroglyphic kind of?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So that style, the linear, I call it like a linear geometric sort of style. So it becomes relatable. So I was about, I think it was around 15 years into my career, and I decided that I wasn't going to specialize in anything until I hit around 15 years. I'd rather be very well-rounded. It was more exciting and a more expansive sort of journey for me to be well-rounded. And then at 15 years, when I shifted my mindset, I got caught in this place of I guess it's probably my own personal spirituality and how I want to implement that, and also within that was a journey of, or an understanding of ritual. And for my thoughts, it was in the past there had been a sense of ritual about tattooing, and then that became our present, and with it becoming our present was then the past was our history. And I'm like, okay, cool, at this point, if we're present and if I'm creating a linear geometric style tattoo or a style, then at some point in time that there will then become history. So that was myself wanting to create this present day ritual. So I started going down this road, and with the linear geometric is in the most basic form, it's a cross section of lines and interactions. But then that's life, it's with our paths and our interactions, and I found that as I sat with people and asked a series of questions, these forms would start to appear that essentially look like a cosmic blueprint to the individual, and very unique to each individual. Within that was also the concept of past and present and future experiences, where things need to be, where they sit inside the psyche of the self. And for me, creating these was very hit deeper notes in the connection with my client, which have always been so involved in the person and their journey. I started to create these very special places, and within that, my belief system, started to unfold, where there was places where a vibration would start to appear in the conversations, and not just the art. And for me, the basic summary of creating these was that with talking with someone and hearing and sharing and honoring their story creates this movement within the self. Also creates this intention, and for me, it was the intention was one of the most important things, because in our life, everything has a vibration. So we're creating this piece of linear, geometric, spiritual piece of cosmic reality. We're bringing that into this forefront, and as that started to happen, the ritual started to form. And so the ritual was forming as we were talking, and then once the tattoo starts, then it was the breaking of the skin, and I'm still, regardless of my approach to it, I believe that tattoos, no matter what they are, they hold a vibration. And for me, it was always that vibration that is then, it's an organic piece of art that grows with with the client, with the human and the human biology, and then it would then have this vibration, and my intention has always been that vibration expands and continues to expand, and create this positive flow through my client, as they continue with their path through life, and then bringing that back. It's that to me, tattoos are always meant to be a very, very positive experience. That experience, that something lasts. You go and you walk in, and it lasts a lifetime. But that's the starting point, is where you connect with your artist. For me, this today's reality. You can go and you can get like a fantastic piece of art, or a unique piece of art. From me, if I'm going to interject, I see these interactions happen time and time again. There's and I'm at this point very curious, because there's less and less interaction with artists. There's a slight interaction, deciding a placement, and then to me that feels very empty.
Very,
but this is we're in a reality of creating the self, and at that point people are happy that they're then seeking an artist to inspire or add to who they are creating as the self. So this is is definitely supported in this modern age. I think people deserve a little more than what they're getting. I think they deserve to give themselves that little bit more, even if it is adding. I think a lot of artists, have an opportunity to shift, little bits, or create a certain avenue of awakening within their clients, even if it's within the conversation, whatever that may be. But the conversation should then elevate, as well as the art should then elevate the person. I think it's when you walk into a museum, you've got a visual of a piece of art. A piece of art is could be a great piece of art, but we're well aware of that. There's a description that comes with the art. There's a conversation. There's a celebration. There's an understanding. There's a whole culture that is a piece of art and everything that goes with it. And I really feel that tattoo and the artistry needs more of that support.
I have a great story for listeners regarding everything that you're talking about. I'll first say that was something I was not expecting when we walked in the door, Brina and I together, to sit down with you. We were not expecting to walk out just floating from the experience because of what you're talking about. Most of the time when you're talking with tattoo artists, a lot of them seem just even annoyed that you're there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
you're kind of annoying though.
You're pretty fucking annoying too, actually, now that I think about it. But anyway, so I jumped the spot actually, and Brina was supposed to go first, but that's another story. I went first, and Brina had to wait her turn, and then she went. And so when you came back the next time, I started another piece, and Brina was thinking about having a child. And she was in that range where it wasn't sure if we didn't know the science behind it. Like, can she get tattooed? Does tattoo ink affect anything? You're talking about biology and the science behind human biology. And I have a great story for that. Brina was a little worried that she wasn't going to be able to take the pain of childbirth. So she wanted to challenge herself to get tattooed again. And once you came into town, she put herself on the list, and she wanted to get that back piece that you did, which was one of the most magical nights of my life, about all of us hanging out together. And she sat like, in my opinion, she sat like a warrior champ in silence as you and I kind of clowned around, and we all caught up and had that wonderful connection. And we had to make an adjustment, I think, in the tattoo, and she was done. She didn't want to do it again, and she didn't want to sit down, and she was nervous about that. So then you and I jumped into a routine of a couple of characters acting out. I think we were all a little slap happy at 11:30 or something after she had sat for at least 8 hours straight, which, for the record, is a lot longer than I've ever sat. So as far as the pain threshold of a woman. So lo and behold, many months later, maybe a year later, Brina goes into labor. She is so dilated, and she hasn't taken any painkillers at all. And so then at the end, she decides she wants to call the anesthesiologist. So it's a whole funny story that the anesthesiologist took his damn time after she said her safe word a few times to me, which was Beetlejuice. And the anesthesiologist could not log in to his computer, so he had to go find another computer, and Brina is like, hey, she's hanging on. She's hanging on by a thread at this point in time. And so am I, because I'm just on the sideline, can't do anything to help her or anything. Well, I can. I'm helping her a lot, and she's being a champ. But so I reach my state of frustration where I walk out into the hallway, and I see the anesthesiologist down the hallway, and I was like, hey, the fuck are you doing, dude? Come on, get back in here. So he comes back. He goes to give her, I send her into this beautiful visualization, which will remain private between she and I. And there's 3 anesthesiologists and there are nurses. And there was a lot of tension in the room until I started this visualization. And everybody kind of dropped down, and Brina, who was before very tense, relaxed. And the anesthesiologist does his work, comes out, turns to me, and he says, whoever did this tattoo, you need to thank him, because the coordinates of where you had aligned on the spine were perfect for him to get the injection in at a time when she was shaking. And she turned around and was like, Damon, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing before that. And so I wanted to come back and tell you about that story and share that beautiful experience. I think the anesthesiologist turned around and said, thank you for the visualization. I was really right there with you, and it calmed all of us down.
Nice story. I think I'll just interject with a bit of a timeline there. your wife was not pregnant when we were tattooing, but that was in the process. 100% she wasn't.
Yeah.
It's against tattoos, but you
right.
were waiting for results.
Right. We were we've just been very trying to be healthy and all that, and that was all me.
Yeah.
And she had done the research, and we were in the God, it's such a
waiting
blur.
for the results, or you were in the I think you were in your final process.
We're in the final process of getting started,
Yeah.
just about to get started, right?
Yeah. And it was it was a beautiful sitting, regardless. I remember, we went through the whole process and in creation, tattooing, and it was getting very painful for her. And it was just Robert, Bree, Anna, and then myself left in the studio. So we had this really nice opportunity to take over this space, and I've done this with another friend, where a close friend, and it's not often I would choose to go this route, but when tattoos have gotten really painful, you can harmonize with the pain by also creating a vibration with sound.
I forgot about this.
I've had other friends, just drop into a low hum or a vibration that then will take them through that final part of the tattooing. It's not for everyone, and it's a deeper level, but we had the ability to then support Bree, and we all started chanting the Om sound, and which then got her through that final half an hour or so, and it was actually it's those times that are everything. There's the vulnerability that appears in a room, a vulnerability, and through vulnerability is also the acknowledgement of what someone is going through, and also finding their inner truth and inner strength, beautiful things, and then it's a nice coincidence. I like that story with the anesthesiologist. Yeah, absolutely. I'll just put that out there. That's a coincidence. Otherwise, I'm going to have these a bunch of women coming to see me like, hey, can you just
you dot up my spine?
Yeah. Put a couple of dots in for the anesthesiologist. I'm just like, okay, here we go.
Next thing you know, they'll just in case we have a C-section, could you put a dotted line right here on my side?
Yeah, Robert told us that you knew.
I've sent a lot of people your way.
Yeah, he did,
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about your artwork for the book. For those who have read the book or are planning to read the book, Damon is a featured and beloved character in the book. Basically, the scene takes place where I describe the time that we met and when he did a tattoo on me. And the stencil, the line work, ended up being the artwork for the book. The original drawing ended up being the artwork in the book. I wanted to describe something that people have come back and commented on whenever they have read the book, especially the editor for the book came back, and he had some notes on the manuscript, and he said, damn, he freehanded your original drawing? And that's another technique that you use that I've never seen anyone else use, where you use a skin pen when someone comes in and you do a rough sketch on the body.
Yeah, so that technique is, it's one I like to use. Just to get started. There was a part of my career where probably a solid 2 years where I'd use freehand from start to finish, nothing else.
Oh,
wow. With today I'll do a freehand, then I'll take a print from there, and then either recalibrate, design up the level of design, solve any kind of issue that may happen during that process. Some things still lend itself to 100% freehand, but with the geometric world, it's nice to be able to take it away and then recreate. It's definitely a fun process, and it definitely makes it, I think, part of the ritual. When you're really connecting organically for a start. Yeah. I want to maybe talk about a little bit about when you walked in the door, and my feelings, and my interpretation of that experience of meeting you. which I think is very important. At this point, let's cut to a little bit of a chase when, we're already in the studio, we're talking, we're getting acquainted, you're an asshole, I'm an asshole. No, we're a bit, in this place of connecting, and Robert likes to connect. He's a very deep thinker, and so for me that was an opening to where I can also feel comfortable connecting on, not just introductory and verbal exchange, where then some fire off and have these slight different connections, and this with some people, when you connect with them, can happen at a very rapid pace. And we were sitting there and we're talking about design, and I was getting excited by your thoughts and what you wanted to create, and then I found that there was an opportunity to then visit something on a deeper level, and so then within that creation, the same path started to allow itself to appear, where we started talking about, and on respectfully, you started to then share about things from your past and where you're at, and
the inspirations of the Phoenix,
and then also sharing part of your emotional being, without having a mask or a cover over that. I then was like, okay, cool. Well, maybe can we try something for a moment, and we went into a meditation, and without going into any real depth, but these things are written in the book, and it was closely related to your sister, and for me it was, at that time it was, how do we allow a movement forward? It's not taken away from someone's personal, cerebral or emotional experience. It's how do we then move forward outside or grow a loop that someone's stuck in. And from my perspective, I've got this beautiful human being sitting in front of me, but then caught in this loop of a visual that was then given to you, so that you had the visuals of an experience. And I asked the question to you, and you were open to receiving, and I says, okay, cool. One of the things I posed was, you have this situation that's happened, and it's all information that has been given to you about a situation that is, about your sister and surrounding your sister and the events. And I said, so everything that you visually see has been created within your own mind, given the information. I said, so you then have this ability, this beautiful ability to then expand that story.
Yeah. Alternate ending.
And ultimately, and I think at this point with us creating, with your design, but then also having this very beautiful ritual and happening right as we were talking, and this also this great light really started to shine, or begin, and this was the Phoenix. This is the Phoenix, rising up from these ashes, so that it wasn't just that, you've come to me, we've got all the intention, I want this Phoenix, that means all these things, but, we brought serious, life to this beautiful, fiery bird, that still exists. And, I think one of the other parts of that is that we meshed, we collided in this place of, oh, hang on a minute, this person, that person, and there's this respect, and there was an honoring, and then there was a tattoo, and there was a journeying of it, which wasn't easy at certain points, and then it was easy at other points, and it was quite right. the journey, and along with that came this beautiful friendship of connection, where we're and still, at this point, as well as being a very honoring part of your book, there's also this really honoring part of your life, and that friendship that continues to happen and unfold. I think tattooing, it's not that for me personally that I want to be friends with everyone,
Right.
you know. But as a example of where tattooing and what tattooing is, then this would be a prime example of the expanding vibration and the power of it.
Yeah.
That can happen from.
So I have a quick
from
question
such a
about that.
ritual.
What is the percentage of people that come through that are open to change in general? Not necessarily like open to creating friendships with anyone, but just
change in general.
Change.
Yeah, I get it, for the experience.
Or do you think that's kind of a
It's not a no. It's
telltale thing when people come to get a tattoo?
Yeah, you know, there are people that have, you know, their course on how they want to take things, and it can be very straightforward, you know, and they don't want to go any deeper than the visual of their tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, can quickly assess that this is going to be the process in which they want to take, you know, so then I'm still there to facilitate that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm, you know, so I'll meet a person where they are at, and you know, the last thing you want to be doing is, you know, if you're not in a place of deep conversation or wanting to have a deep conversation, is to have a deep conversation. You'll
Right.
be just like, oh fuck, here we go. You
Fuck
know,
off.
yeah, enough. I don't need that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like the last thing I need, or you know, it's just not me having these, you know, deep and meaningful things. Yeah, and a lot of it's over the top of you know, certain people's, you know, heads, and that's fair enough. You know, so then the percentage of people that do come for probably you know, end up having these deep is I think a very small percentage. You know, probably I would even, you know, less than 25%. I would say.
Okay.
You know, bonding experiences. Yeah, even slightly lesser, but you know, I think for myself, regardless of, you know, whether it's a really deep experience, someone may be having that deep experience within themselves without, you know, me having to navigate through for them. You know, they might be having, you know, that experience, which I can also appreciate. Yeah.
Cool. I've paid attention a lot to the descriptions that you write when you post an image of a tattoo that you've done. They're all very insightful and may or may not be pertinent to the person or just thoughts that you're having at the time with the journey of life. I think one thing that struck me once was that every once in a while you get free reign on a tattoo, and you get to come up with everything and do everything yourself, and that's a very gratifying, pleasurable thing for you to do. It's that ability to be open, not just to suggestion, but for instance, when you said that you just kind of got to do freehand from the beginning to the end and see what would happen in the middle of this ritual, I loved that there was a moment in our last tattoo where you included some elements that, for me, I can be resistant, and this could be for anything. You know, I can be resistant to music, arts in general. I can put my blinders on and have a vision, and this is how it's got to be, which is something I'm always trying to constantly work on, which was a challenge with the book of letting 33 people have reign. But I learned that from you in general, of just kind of step back and let the someday soon to be master do his work. So I would encourage people to allow artists, if you trust them, you know, if you trust their portfolio and such, and they're open to it, because the benefit of that is every time I see this element of my tattoo, I look down and smile and remember that moment when I look down to see this particular thing, and it brings me greater joy than anything else that's in the tattoo itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, trust yourself first, and then, you know, trust that you've made the right decision, and when you're definitely looking for an artist, and then, you know, trust your process within that experience is, you know, 100%. And with that, you know, there is the letting go. You know, I've had these points in my career with dealing with people, and, you know, I have said that, you know, the only person that's going to limit this being, you know, an absolutely fantastic tattoo, and the tattoo's still going to be, you know, really, really great, is, you know, as someone trying to control the situation. And generally the people that are trying to control the situation aren't visual people, which also.
Okay. I've heard that a lot on the podcast, with particularly the illustrators and tattoo artists who are dealing with people who are not visually impaired. They are visually impaired.
They don't have that gift, but they want to control things. They're used to controlling things in their life.
So what about you and your tattoos? Did you really seek specific artists that you admired?
No, I did not. For me, it was all for myself, and tattoos was all about energy and flow. I had a strong idea from day one of where my tattoos were going to be, and that evolved because I couldn't find certain artists to understand my abstract way of thinking. Mm-hmm. I still wanted to get tattooed, so my concept or visual concept has changed. My concepts are still the same. My inspiration for getting tattooed has always been whoever I'm relating to. I'm lucky enough that I've always been working with great artists, really talented people, because it's that for me. It's always the exchange of energy. As you know, at that time and place, I want only good energy to be a part of my body and my experience. Geez, I've got tattoos on me that were done, and at times of really cool connection, and then those connections have gone. Mm-hmm. But at that period, that connection was real.
Right.
So I still have that vibration happening with me. I think for me it's always been, as opposed to, okay, cool, I can go and get that guy, and I tried it once or twice, reaching out and sending emails to like a particular artist, and as an artist I never heard back. Wow. And I was just like, interesting. I was like, so it wasn't for me, to go that route. It's always been, if I like the person, I'm like, okay, you've got a good vibe. I like where you're coming from and how you're moving with you and working with your clients and your work, and anyone, no matter what they're doing, if they have if they have a really nice truth about them, the authenticity is really important to me.
Speaking of authenticity, we were talking a little bit about ancient tattoos and such, and did you ever sit down for I'm not sure exactly what the correct term is for the hammer poking old school technique.
The Japanese Erozumi, and then also the Sakyan from Thailand, style of tattooing. Then there's the tapping done by, and I don't know what the Samoans' real name is, and
and is this like the Hawaiian Islands have an old school technique like this as well?
Yeah, the Hawaiians, they have a technique as well.
Do you have any of these tattoos?
I have a piece that's in my chest, done by a woman, Horiren, from Japan. Absolutely incredible work. So that was traditionally done. It was a bonji, and if you know anything of bonjis, there's 12 different symbols that represent different things, and hierarchy. And mine is representative of Fudo, which I allowed her to choose.
I was going to ask if she like some artists will only select for the people.
Yes, and so she chose that, which was kind of appropriate to me, I think, because Fudo has this sword in one hand and a chain with like something that looks like an empty lantern or a glass box or something like this. So the story goes that that lantern or what on the end of the chain attracts all the negative energies, and then with the sword he then severs that to disperse them.
Nice. That's beautiful.
Cool, that works for me.
That's super cool.
And then when I was in Thailand, I got to sit with one of the monks.
Oh, wow.
And had a prayer done, which was a really cool experience. I think personally that those two circumstances of a traditional style tattooing, for me, was probably the less painful. Where you could get into this really nice, deep, letting go, meditative state.
Did you say the less painful?
Less painful.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I would expect it to be more.
Those two experiences.
But I was thinking about sound in general, and I can imagine only that the tapping is rhythmic and meditative in itself.
If you're doing, those ones there, the Japanese use the bamboo, and then it's more of a under sort of hand movement.
Okay.
I see. It's almost like a threading, and then the tie darting it into the skin.
Okay.
So there's two. The Samoan have a tapping, and so if you're talking about the tapping, then geez, if you're ever gonna have that experience, if it comes into your path, then you definitely want to find someone with a rhythmic, with a good rhythm, because without having the experience would be if you're listening to a bad drummer. Just like if you imagine listen to a bad drummer for hours and hours, and with every drum there's an element of pain,
Sure.
But I feel with the rhythmic sound, then you get to really shift into that and let that guide you through. Well,
you mentioned bad drummers, so how's your music doing?
DJing's good. Yeah, my nice little side hobby, I used to do it years ago, vinyl back at, early 2000s, then let that go when I started traveling.
Well, it's natural for you because you have great taste in music, and that's one
you.
great thing. If you ever get to select the music in a tattoo shop, it adds to the experience. So you played some shows recently, yeah?
Yeah, I did. I picked up a digital during COVID, and the nice thing with digital is that you get to purchase a multitude of genres for a fraction of the price of what a piece of vinyl was back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then I got to experiment and start playing different genres, and it's been a really nice curve, enough for me to get me slots at festivals.
That's awesome.
Just smaller festivals, nothing huge at the moment.
Sure.
I had someone ask me the other day, well, do you want to be like famous DJ? I'm like, I have no desire to be a famous DJ at all. I says my and this is where my ego comes in, and my motivation is like, all I ever want is to, each level, my level up is the bigger and more powerful sound system.
Okay.
And so even if I'm like at like a big festival, if I'm just doing sound check on a massive sound system, that's my goal. I'm like, I want to know what it feels like in the mass of like power.
And, back to the vibration.
That's my motivation and excitement. But then with that, also, to get to that level, I have to have a skill set that supports me being able to jump on and be like, okay, man, you get to drive the $50 million vehicle for 20 minutes or so. I'm like,
no train wrecks.
Yes, don't blow the system up, dude.
Which happens. I'll never forget. I was doing a sound check at a Napa festival many years ago, and this kid was really young, and he was an assistant to someone setting up this beautiful, amazing sound system, and he plugged in the wrong things while I was doing it, and the whole speaker blew, and the owner of the speaker came over, and I thought they was going to kill this kid. I can't imagine how much money it cost, and the guy's yelling, you could have killed yourself, and the whole festival was delayed till they had to go drive all the way back from Napa to San Francisco and grab new speakers, and it was an experience. Yeah, music, man. Music is so crucial in all of these things, and it was a huge part of writing the book as well.
Yeah, what kind of music did you listen to when you were writing your book? Did you listen to the music? What was your...
I did.
If you just like flip the script a little bit here, let me ask you a couple of questions.
I was trying to gain knowledge all over the place, and there was a period where I was on masterclass, and long story short, I took the Amy Tan class, and Amy Tan is most famous for the Joy Luck Club, and I actually did I got an exchange with masterclass where they asked me to review her uncut class and give notes back, and they gave me a free membership to stay on masterclass. And so I wasn't expecting a lot from Miss Amy Tan when I watched that, because I'm not very familiar with her work, but in watching it, she reminded me of a few different things. One was to keep that candle lit and to make it a ritual, the entire writing process, to make it mean something to you and make it a ritual. And one of those things was not just select music, but select the right mood music for whatever scene you're writing. And that both became very cathartic and therapeutic in lots of tears were shed, obviously, as you can imagine, writing this book. So I thanked a lot of the artists that I listened to in the back of the book, if anybody's curious. But one I will mention in particular is, I have never heard her name pronounced, so I believe it's Wata, Wata. And I found her on Calm. And she did all of these unbelievably fantastic soundscapes. And all of them were astrologically driven. So for a year, once a month, she would release a new soundscape for whatever the astrological sign was. So for that one in particular, I would, whatever character I was writing about in the book, I would make sure I knew their astrological sign and listen to that soundscape. And they're so glorious. I had so many out-of-body experiences at the time with sunlight hitting a particular point of my father's urn in the window and then splashing these beautiful glittery orbs of light on the ceiling right at the moment when I'm checking out, and it's been too much for the moment. I look up and see that I just happen to be at this right place at the right time when this sliver of sunlight came and hit this urn. So I would love to talk about that, because there is a moment when I start editing and doing this repetitive word pass that I've mentioned in a few interviews, and I really wanted to make that another sacred experience. So I narrowed all of the repetitive words down to what I would consider my own personal sacred numerology. And so at the time there was construction going on around my house, and I'm doing this, which meant I had to revisit my traumas at light speed during the day doing these repetitive words. So if I took the word beautiful and there were 45 instances of it, I had to go 45 instances during the book and then do this alphabetically for thousands of words. So it was way too much. I was really hurting inside doing this. And then my friend Ethan came up with this great idea. He was in Berlin around the time that raves were blowing up, and he was collecting music. So he has this enormous archive of what was going on in the rave scene. And he sent me this file of all this old music that's impossible to find. And what I found was that if you put this mechanical house / electronic music on that is just I started cooking through the repetitive word pass. You know, I was no longer emotionally attached to like the beautiful soundscapes of Wata that I was listening to at the time. And then we got into that 4 on the floor. Yeah, and I just cruised through it. Yeah.
Yeah, work to be done.
Yeah, lots of work to be done. And there's nothing like good house music for me.
Can I just interject and keep asking, even though I just want to position another question about your writing and your whole journey through the book. You know, and I mean, your book's so much about your experience, but then it's also about the people, and you know, and your relationship to them. You know, was there times where you without getting deeper, or it's more, you know, spiritual, but you know, this is a question I want to ask. I want to know, did you ever feel people close to you, or you know, have any kind of times where you knew that they were sitting right there, you know, watching, you know, the pen or the fingers move, and or a tap on the shoulder when it was a tough moment? Was there, you know, as you know, coming in as guides, or you know, or just a thank you, and you know, did these things, you know, often, or did they happen, you know, and how did they happen for you? You know, what did that look like in the process of your book?
Absolutely. I think a more easy to answer question is, when were they not there? That's one of those perception shifts that I made early on in my youth, even with my sister. When people die in my life, they become much closer to me, which for the most part is healthy. They don't go away. They actually kind of can see the inside of my mind, and where I might have even had conflicts with someone like my mother, who, in a motherly sense of looking at her child, there was always this butting of heads where I didn't want to do something that she was mentioning. And so once she was gone, it was like, okay, now she's here. She's always on my shoulder, and she can see why I make these decisions. And as opposed to someone who's constantly trying to course correct, she can now see why I make decisions and is there to cheer me on in this absolutely mad decision to become an artist in general. But for the process of the book, I think Amy Tan in that same masterclass mentioned another way to put it, which was keep the ghosts in the room with you. Not only that, but as you're lighting the candle, to invite them in. And I think it's very important to note that when you're writing a true story, especially about people that are dead, it was a very powerful experience to me to invite them in the room and to ask them to help me sort out the truth of these memories. You know, not only is the way that I remember it, and I want to paint that my perspective only, but to put myself in their shoes in that time and to just kind of ask them for guidance on what is appropriate to put in the story, which I think is important to honor people. There are some things to me, and the school of thought, especially on memoirs by anyone who's out there giving advice on memoirs, is that you want to give the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and all the truth. And that's not how I look at it. You know, there's some stories to me when I'm honoring someone that I know they won't want told, you know. And there was one particular story where I had to call my aunt, and that story ended up getting cut from the book. Not for the reasons I thought they would, but out of respect for that side of the family. So there were moments in the book where they were so close, and I'm constantly talking to them, you know. And it's been like that for most of my life. And you're talking about the therapeutic benefit of writing in general. If you have a journal, anyone out there who has a journal, anyone going through very difficult times or whatever, I highly suggest writing it down. You know, if nothing else, to just have the experience of the joy of you creating something, but it does help to process things. Whether or not I would advise that you put it into a memoir and put it out for the whole world to see is yet to be determined. But I think that when you complete something as deeply personal and start uncovering, well, as I refer to it in the book, that cave where I've hidden things that I didn't want to resurface ever again in my life. There's so much fear that comes up, man. So much fear of not doing justice to the people that are in it, which is always my first and foremost thing, violating some sense of trust between us. Or was it true? But just, is it good is the thing to me. You know, am I writing it well? But to complete it, to step away and realize, yeah, it is good. That's when you're talking about that celebration, and they are in the room. And like, to complete the book, it was a ghost dance of spirits in my room, you know, to complete it and say I'm finished. Yes. And they were all here for sure. But yeah, there were those moments where they were not, and I think those are my darkest moments when I'm like, none of this is real. None of this, I'm just thinking, and I made it all up in my head. There's nothing going on. I can't feel them near me at all. And lo and behold, there's some stories. I remember after writing the Phoenix Feathered Sunset and having that feeling of, I don't feel it, I stepped outside and was walking up my steps, and there was a giant phoenix in the sunset, it was a cloud in the sky that I took photographs of, and I show it to people, and they're like, holy shit. Like, that is seen that photograph. Most definitely that. And I'm someone who can't look away from that and knows I don't really focus on it, but I just nod, and the tears kind of accumulate on the lid, on my eyelids, and I'm like, okay, they're there.
Yeah, thanks.
No, thank you. Thank you for that question. I think it's important.
I just noticed as you were talking there, the air became a little bit denser in here.
Oh yeah, they came having a little circle around us.
Yeah, they did.
Well, they're everywhere. I can't, you know, I've taken these photographs down off of my walls to get them out of my face for a little bit and then put them right back up. That's an important thing when you lose members. It's okay to put them away for a while, but they always end up popping back up. But I think that was important for our journey and something that you gave to me, because I was holding on to my sister at the time in an unhealthy way. And that was the beauty of the analogy of something that you gifted to me with the artwork and the whole experience and the release of trauma that is getting tattooed, to have that pain focus somewhere else, but also to dig in those caverns of where I'm storing that trauma. And I was able to release her and out into the universe to do whatever she's going to. Come back when you want to or whatever, but I'm not going to think about this in that way anymore. And I think that was something that I knew was going to be at the end of this journey with the book. And I still have some celebration to do, and I still have some release to do with the old man and such, but it's working its magic. As you do, my friend. And every occurrence that we have, that magic, you're a magic human being. So
thank you.
I want to thank you deeply for
my pleasure.
The artwork, for the experience and what you do and the decisions you've made. It's an honor to have your artwork in the book and to call you an asshole of mine.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for allowing me to be here. Share a bit of your time, energy, and space, and thoughtfulness, and a couple. I think the only one thing that really springs forth to me is the journey. That we're continuously on. I don't know that. I mean, you have a completion of a book, but yet the journey carries and continues.
Yeah, it's just beginning
to move, and I think that's that's our life and the moments in between, and we have these specific moments where we have greater moments. I think it's a great moment. I think these moments. If you're if you're a seeker of life, then there's also greater moments to then unfold and happen, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they look like in your future. And how they manifest and take place, and then moves you into a even in greater position towards yourself, and how you choose to move in this experience.
It is a constant work of art. I think being in the seat of the student, I think there's some mastery to it, but I think that's something to achieve at the next level, is always to remind yourself of that beginner's mind.
Level up
level up. Level 33. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, nice.
Eclipse of the Mourning Star is available at eclipse of the morning star.com.